Israeli Prime Minister is set to meet with President Biden ahead of his address to U.S. Congress next week. But first, let's look at what's happening in Gaza. IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi says that Hamas is trying to hide the outcome of Saturday's airstrike in Khan Yunis, targeting its military commander, Mohammed Deif. Halevi also insisted that the army was creating pressure for Hamas to reach a hostage for ceasefire deal. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz reports.
The IDF confirmed that Khan Yunis Brigade Commander Rafa Salameh was killed in the deadly Israeli airstrike on an above-ground hidden Hamas encampment on Saturday.
אתמול, בפעולה משותפת של צה"ל ושב"כ, תקפנו מתחם בח'אן יונס, בו הסתתרו מוחמד דף, מפקד הזרוע הצבאית של חמאס, האיש שתכנן ונתן את פקודת ההתקפה ב-7 באוקטובר. לצידו, רפה סלאמה, מפקד חטיבת ח'אן יונס, ואיתם עוד מחבלים וסיינים נוספים.
The army said the killing of Salameh dealt a significant blow to the military capabilities of Hamas and that he had been one of Def's closest associates and one of the masterminds of the October 7th massacre. Calling the return of the hostages a moral imperative, Halevi insisted that the IDF can return and fight with great intensity after the potential truce. The IDF chief said that the army is creating all pressure needed on Hamas to move forward to reach a hostage for ceasefire deal.
אנחנו לא עוצרים, לא מפסיקים להילחם. פועלים בכל רצועת עזה בשיטות לחימה שונות. מזה כחודשיים אנחנו מתמרנים ברפיח ומביאים הישגים צבאיים משמעותיים. הורגים עוד ועוד מחבלים, משמידים את תשתיות הטרור של חמאס ופוגעים ביכולותיו.
The 162nd Division continues to operate in the Rafah area, but the IDF has concluded larger reinvasions of both Sejaiya and Gaza City and has largely entered stage 3 of the war to lower intensity conflict.
Next week, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu will meet with U.S. President Joe Biden just days ahead of his address before the U.S. Congress in a joint session. The invitation for Netanyahu came after much controversy and increased tensions between the U.S. and Israel, staunch allies, over the Gaza war. Let's take a closer look.
On July 22nd, during his visit to the United States, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu will meet with U.S. President Biden, despite the rising tensions between the two leaders over Israel's management of the Gaza war. While still supporting Israel's right to self-defense, the Biden administration has criticized Israel's handling of humanitarian aid to Gaza and the alleged civilian casualty count in Gaza. In June, Netanyahu harshly criticized the Biden administration for freezing a shipment of weapons needed by the IDF, which the Biden administration denied, then clarified it was only one shipment that was delayed. The Biden administration also criticized Netanyahu, calling his criticism of the U.S. deeply disappointing. Despite the public spat, Biden has continued to advocate for the release of hostages and has urged a ceasefire, condemning Hamas for their refusal to cooperate. During Netanyahu's visit to the U.S., he will also address a joint session of U.S. Congress on July 24th, where he's expected to speak about the Gaza war and shared threats of the U.S. and Israel. But due to the polarization and politicization of the Gaza war, some Democrats have expressed they will not be attending Netanyahu's speech, despite the fact Netanyahu was invited in a bipartisan effort. As of this week, it's unclear if the aftermath of the attempted assassination of former President Trump will change the divisive rhetoric that's dominated the conversation. Following the attempted assassination, dozens of world leaders, including U.S. President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu, condemned political violence.
This wasn't just an attack on Donald Trump. This was an attack on a candidate for the presidency of the United States. This was an attack on America. It was an attack on democracy. It was an attack on all the democracies.
This visit to the U.S. will be Netanyahu's first time since the current Israeli government was formed and will last for 3 days.
Well, recent discussions in the Israeli cabinet have drawn parallels between the attempted assassination of former U.S. President Donald Trump and potential threats to Prime Minister Netanyahu. With disunity resurfacing amidst ongoing war and hostage crises, the rhetoric of incitement remains a contentious topic as Netanyahu prepares to head to Washington next week. We have with us in studio ILTV editor-in-chief Mayan Hoffman to discuss a little bit more about this situation. Mayan, thank you for being here, of course. So after this attempted assassination of President Trump, we know that the Israeli cabinet held an entire session on only this issue as a result of the types of internal division we're seeing on the ground here in Israel. As you know, there have also been incidents of incitement against the left and some of the political opponents of Netanyahu. How seriously should we take this threat? Are these situations really similar? Does the public need to be on guard about the level of incitement in the rhetoric?
Well, I think that what we saw with the judicial reform protests prior to October 7th was actually rather deadly. It was getting to a level where people needed to be concerned. We haven't really gone back there yet since the war, but we are seeing it start to bubble up, and it is something to pay attention to, because one of the reasons we think that even October 7th was able to happen was that we were so divided inside the country. I think that we have to be careful, though, to look at the kind of incitement and the kind of statements that are being made and understand what is real and what is rumor. And what often happens, you know, for example, with Netanyahu, people are accusing Netanyahu potentially trying to stop the hostage deal in order to keep his coalition together. That is likely an untrue statement, because what prime minister would not want to bring our hostages home? On the other hand, Netanyahu himself has been accused of incitement before. If we go back to the 1990s and the Rabin assassination, even today, people still believe that he was a big part of what brought about the assassination, Ben-Gvir as well. What I do want to say, just as long as we're talking about Trump, though, is that, you know, what was very interesting with the Trump attempted assassination, I think that we want to ask what will be the results, you know, of the election in America, and whether or not this assassination had a positive or negative, if you could even call it positive, effect, is that Trump really missed that bullet by a very small margin. And he really is saying that it was God, you know, a God's decision. His evangelical audience believes it is that case. More and more is coming out. We don't know what's going to be, whether it'll align with the polls, but there is a good chance that this will help him to bring himself back into the White House.
Absolutely. Now, Netanyahu is going to America next week. He'll be meeting with Biden. He'll be speaking in Congress. What can we expect to see from Netanyahu in this speech and in the meetings with the U.S. administration?
Well, Netanyahu is the foremost orator, and he is expected to tell Israel's story to the American public, and I believe that he will do that effectively in Congress and during his visit there. He's probably going to be setting a world record for the world leader who addresses Congress the most. This is his second time, so that's exciting for Israel, and it really shows that despite a lot of what people, you know, hear and the coldness that supposedly is between us, that Israel is still a bipartisan issue that enjoys support from both sides of the aisles. He was
Speaking of that, I wanted to ask, because there have been a few Democrats who've spoken out saying they're not going to attend this speech because of the situation with Netanyahu. Is it becoming a partisan issue? Is this going to be an issue? I
don't think it is going to be an issue. You're going to see protests outside the White House. It goes without saying. You know, you're going to have some Democrats, of course, that don't show up. But by and large, I believe that the Congress people will show up, and that this will be a very important visit for Biden, because ultimately Biden and Netanyahu have been friends for 40 years. And Biden right now is really struggling. Netanyahu's vote of approval, vote of confidence in his ability to handle the conflict, can only help Biden with the challenges he's facing in this election.
Absolutely. Well, Mayan, thank you so much for your insights and analysis on this issue. Let's hope that the visit goes smoothly and that the rhetoric in both countries is dialed down a little bit.
Sure, thank you.
In medieval times, blood libels ignited pogroms that shattered our people. And now echoes of these lies persist in new blood libels. On college campuses, online, in the media, and halls of power, Jewish communities are facing this haunting echo of history once again. That's why we must speak out and make our voices heard. Today, there is only one organization that truly brings together Jewish communities from more than 100 countries and effectively elevates the voices of young leaders standing on the front lines in this battle for our survival: the World Jewish Congress. Since the Hamas attacks on October 7th, American Friends of Sheba Medical Center has stepped up in an extraordinary way. They've raised more than $35 million, ensuring the victims of the massacre and the soldiers who are fighting for Israel continue to receive life-saving treatments and rehabilitation. American Friends of Sheba has arranged for more than 150 volunteers to travel to Israel, providing critical support to the nation's largest and most comprehensive medical center. Be a part of the Sheba. Stand for health. Stand for Israel. Donate now.
Well, Britain's new Foreign Secretary David Lammy is in Jerusalem ahead of talks with Israeli and Palestinian leaders focused on efforts to reach a hostage for ceasefire deal. The top British diplomat also hopes to lend his support to advance a two-state solution. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the report.
The new British Foreign Secretary made clear that he is first and foremost in Jerusalem to advance the hostage for ceasefire agreement in Gaza.
Because I'm here to push for a ceasefire. I'm here to ensure that those hostages are released and that the aid gets in with this horrendous situation that's unfolding in Gaza. That takes diplomatic effort. I'm looking forward to speaking to the Prime Minister and Israeli leaders and in being in the occupied territories over the coming days. This problem has gone on for too long. We now need to see a ceasefire.
The British Foreign Secretary said he plans to make the case for a pathway toward a two-state solution. He will also raise issues regarding the conduct of the war in Gaza and plans to report to Parliament regarding British arms sales to Israel.
Well, I said in coming into office that I would look at the assessment and the legal considerations. I will do that over the coming days. That process has begun, and I hope to report to Parliament as soon as I possibly can.
The top British diplomat took time to comment on the assassination attempt on former U.S. President Donald Trump.
Mediation efforts to reach a hostage for ceasefire agreement are still underway and have not been derailed by the Israeli targeting of Hamas military chief Mohammed Deif. That's the word from Hamas officials as Israeli Mossad chief David Barnea heads back to Doha, Qatar. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz reports.
Despite reports to the contrary, the Hamas terror group has not withdrawn from ceasefire talks over this weekend's Israeli attack targeting Mohammed Deif. The statement from the group denied Hamas had left or suspended the talks as a result of the Israeli strike. The announcement did blame Prime Minister Netanyahu with attempting to sabotage a potential agreement. The announcement came hours after an unnamed Hamas official was reported saying that the Palestinian terror group has withdrawn from the talks because of what it called Israeli massacres and Israelis' attitude in negotiations. Prime Minister Netanyahu has reportedly hardened the Israeli negotiating stance in light of reported intelligence showing Hamas needs a ceasefire agreement due to its weakening military position. Ramped-up hostage talks in Doha and Cairo took place throughout much of last week, and contacts are ongoing. Further negotiations are still planned for this week in Doha with the participation of Mossad chief David Barnea. The current round of talks are based on an Israeli proposal. The talks stalled in June, but a recent reworking of the agreement's language opened the door for renewed negotiations. This after Hamas dropped its demand that the framework include commitment from Israel to end the war during the first phase. The terror group is still demanding a commitment to that effect from mediators. It's believed that 116 hostages abducted by Hamas on October 7th remain in Gaza, including the remains of 42, whose deaths the IDF has confirmed.
Reichman University's Adon School of Entrepreneurship stands tall as a beacon of innovation and leadership in Israel, fortifying the nation's stature as a global startup hub. Founded with a clear mission, the school is dedicated to equipping students with all the skills and knowledge necessary to lead the next wave of entrepreneurs.
Located at the heart of Reichman University's vibrant campus, the Adon School of Entrepreneurship serves as a dynamic hub for entrepreneurial endeavors. It offers students a unique educational experience that blends rigorous academic learning with hands-on entrepreneurial practice across various disciplines. Central to its educational ethos are distinguished lecturers and researchers specializing in technological innovation, business, and social entrepreneurship. These experts are complemented by investors who actively engage with students to foster a culture of innovation and practical entrepreneurship. The undergraduate program at the Adon School of Entrepreneurship features innovative dual majors such as business administration and entrepreneurship, computer science and entrepreneurship, and economics and entrepreneurship with data science. Each program is meticulously designed to meet the dual demands of fostering new startups and driving innovation within existing organizations. Students undergo rigorous training, prototyping cutting-edge technological products, and developing critical skills such as entrepreneurial thinking, branding, storytelling, and programming. The Adon School's flagship initiative, the Zell Entrepreneurship Program, integrates theoretical knowledge with practical venture creation under expert guidance. Graduates have launched 158 successful companies, significantly impacting Israel's entrepreneurial landscape. And beyond the classroom, students benefit from study tours, guest lectures, and mentorship programs, allowing students to build robust networks that are essential for entrepreneurial success. In their final year, students participate in a global exchange program at prestigious institutions worldwide, enhancing their entrepreneurial perspectives and global networks. Reichman University's Adon School of Entrepreneurship exemplifies a steadfast commitment to shaping Israel's future through innovative education, thus empowering the next generation of entrepreneurial trailblazers poised to drive meaningful change in Israel and beyond.
Now joining us in the studio is the Dean at the Adon School of Entrepreneurship at Reichman University, Dr. Yosi Maavi. Dr. Maavi, thank you so much for joining us today here in the studio at ILTV. I'd like to start by asking you, how do you combine academic learning with practical entrepreneurship in this program?
Yes, thank you for inviting me. So actually, entrepreneurship is very hard to learn only in the classroom. There is a lot of research, a lot of academic theories that go back 40, 50 years, and we know practically anything about the entrepreneurial journey, personality of entrepreneurs, and so on and so forth, but you cannot learn it only in classroom and only from theories and academic articles. You have to do. You have to work. This is an experiential learning of learning by doing, and we combine it right from the start. So for example, our students, right in the first semester, just as they join the school, they have a project in which they have to team up and think about an idea for a startup, and they have 1 semester to build their own startup. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of them become entrepreneurs during the first semester on school, but they start practicing. And also, most of the research shows that successful entrepreneurs were before that unsuccessful entrepreneurs, because you have to try and you learn from failure. So we give them the opportunity also to fail, but to fail in an incubator, where the failure is not so painful, but most importantly, they learn from this failing. So throughout the degree, they have many opportunities to build projects, to work in teams, and so on.
Absolutely. I mean, what role do the industry leaders and investors play in this program, this practical learning environment?
This is a very good and very important question, because if I said before that it's hard to learn entrepreneurship only in the classroom and only from academic theory, it's also almost impossible to learn it only from professors, only from scholars that mainly do research. You have to learn it from people who actually do entrepreneurship and the entire ecosystem around it. So for us, approximately 80% of our lecturers are industry experts and not university professors. We also have more than 400 mentors that work with our students and actually help us to help the students in their endeavors. And we have many other facilities, resources, and partnerships. For example, we have dozens of industry partnerships. We have the largest internship program in the country, where students can go and take an internship in a startup, in an Israeli startup, for 1 semester, and actually learn in the startup instead of the classroom.
Can you give me an example of a successful company that has come from this program?
Yes, of course. I don't know if you've heard about the problem with bees. Bees are dying because of many different problems. Most of them are man-caused or human-caused. And to save the bees, we need a lot of data. So today, the largest pollination company in the world is Bee Hero, that actually was founded in our school by our students. And they started in Israel, very small. They did the first pilot here, and then they moved to America. And the first connection that they got to their first client in the US was actually by the head of our international school, Mr. Jonathan Davis. And today, approximately 7 years later, they are, as I said before, the largest bee pollination company in the world.
I wanted to ask you, I know you're working with a lot of top institutions in the global exchange program you have. You also have the international school. How important have these two programs been during this last difficult year with a war here in Israel, and how has it helped to tell Israel's story?
Yes, so very important. So we are a very small and boutique university. We only have 3% of all the student population in the country come to Reichman. So it's a very boutique, approximately 9,000 students. But when it comes to international students, we are the largest international school in the country. Almost 40% of all international students that come to Israel for a full degree, they come to Reichman. So it's a very large and successful school. Also, we have the largest student exchange program in the country with more than 120 different partners across the globe, from South America, North America, throughout Europe, and the Far East, Thailand, Singapore, and so on. And this is very important both for our students in let's say, calm periods of time, to have this opportunity to engage internationally and globally. But in this era, when we face these difficulties, it's also very, very important because they have the chance to tell the story of Israel, to be our ambassadors, and to be the bridge internationally. Yeah.
Okay, well, we are out of time, but I want to thank you so much for coming into studio today and speaking about the important work that you guys are doing. Dr. Yosi Maavi, thank you so much.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And now for more on Israel innovation. Israel is known as the startup nation, and now in an incredible development, Google's parent company Alphabet is in advanced talks to acquire Israeli cybersecurity startup Wiz for $23 billion. We'll hear more about that development from ILTV's Ariella Lahiani, but first let's hear from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
In what could become the largest exit in Israeli history, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Google is close to a deal to buy cybersecurity startup Wiz for $23 billion. Google's parent company Alphabet is reportedly in advanced talks to buy Wiz in what would be its largest acquisition ever. Neither company has spoken publicly about the potential deal, but the Wall Street Journal says it could come together soon. Wiz was founded by CEO Asaf Rappaport. His team has been working together for more than 20 years. In a precursor to the deal, Wiz predicted in May that this will be a year of consolidation in the field of cybersecurity.
And now to speak more about this is ILTV's Ariella Lahiani. Ariella, what is the significance of this? I mean, what does it mean for Israel?
This is huge news. First and foremost, it's a great testament to Israeli resilience. At a time of war, or multi-front war, I should say, that the Israel tech space has not only remained stable, but has actually continued to flourish. It's something that I think should be recognized and actually applauded. You know, in the face of adversity, they've been able to put that adversity to the side and continue to contribute to an ecosystem that's benefited by the whole world. It's obviously also a massive statement from Google at a time where the BDS movement is a bit of a trend, to be honest, that Google's not only looking at a deal with an Israeli startup, but their biggest deal ever, is extremely empowering for Israel, and that they've signaled such a level of trust in Israeli high tech is something that's very powerful, as I said, and this such a high profile acquisition is something that would not only better Israel's reputation as a leading hub for innovation and cybersecurity, but also hopefully foster international investments and funding into Israeli startups and high tech in the future.
Thank you, Ariella, for that analysis. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 24 degrees Celsius or 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, hot weather and sunny skies are expected as temperatures should reach highs of 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For all the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.